All right, well, thank you for the introduction, Jabari. Again, I'm Mike Savage, Chief Architect with the Field CTO organization at Red Hat. And we're going to talk about Red Hat and what we bring to the IT world. And then we'll talk about opportunities for you all. And then at the end, any questions or
We got about 10 on.
okay, and as well as online. So thank you everyone for having me here today. Big fan of South Carolina. So we're going to talk about a company overview, more in depth. We'll review open source. Sounds like you've already had a introduction, just a little bit. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We're also going to talk about our customers and partners that Red Hat works with every day. And then we'll discuss how you could potentially get your Red Hat. And if you come work at Red Hat on your first day, you actually get a red fedora, right? It's pretty stylish. So as you've already touched on, I got my degree in chemical engineering, but at the time is when the internet was first starting to kind of develop. And so I was a lab admin for the chemical engineering department. That's where I kind of started to learn about internet and network computing, et cetera, mainly around the Unixes. And that led me to learn about Red Hat, Linux, which was open source Unix, not the proprietary Unix like SunOS, which became Solaris and AIX, and all the other proprietary Unixes. So was fortunate to kind of be in the right place at the right time, actually. So I live in Simpsonville. This is I need to update our photos, it's kind of old, but my wife Lee, Audrey and Matt. Audrey actually is graduating this semester. Really excited for her.
From USC.
From USC, yeah. And Mac is graduating high school. He actually had a senior presentation today on all the different types of stars. So chemical engineering, right? What is beer making? It's actually chemistry. So I kind of got into that and did a little bit of kind of semi-professional, put my degree to work actually. And then for my, blowing off steam, I like to cut up cars and put them back together and all that kind of stuff. So what do I do as a field CTO, chief architect? I work a lot primarily with our partners. At the end of the day, Red Hat and open source is software. So we have to work with a lot of different companies because as you'll find, as you go out into the workforce, is that at IT companies or companies in general that are consuming and software and running their IT departments, it's a bunch of different software companies. You'll have storage vendors there, database, application vendors, operating systems and infrastructure, the whole gamut. So one company is not the be all end all within an organization. So we have to be able to work with all our partners. I do a lot of that. I also work to train our partners on our technologies and our processes. And then think about another 50% of the time, I work directly with our customers because, and as we'll see here in a second, the open source software doesn't immediately go from the community directly to bits that a customer will install and run their business. There's a process there. So I actually try to work with customers directly to get their input on where they see the issues are and where the problems are, where the feature enhancements that they would like to see. And I help try to fast track that to the open source communities and our engineering teams to kind of like close that gap, right? And get the features they want into their company the fastest. And I do that primarily with, I work with the 12 top banks in the world. So if you're spending money, it's going through my software. Period. We'll see a little bit more about our customers. So I think Mr. Dillon just mentioned that the 9FX? 9FX mentioned open source and GitHub. You got it. Who has a GitHub account? Who doesn't? Good. Gotta get. Because as we'll see here shortly, not only are companies looking to see what you graduated in and, you know, what you're interested in, they also want to see real world work today. Because it's so easy to do and prevalent. So you can go on GitHub and just figure out a project that you're interested in. I'm gonna actually show you a couple examples here later.
Do that, because he was trying to explain that, had no example thing, he said just join for free and try to input whatever.
What you can see here is on mine, you can see a lot of the different projects that I've worked on. And there's, you know, ability to chat people in between, talk about issues, submit code requests for inclusion in the project. And over time, you could be able to see your contribution.
Does that track it or you do that?
No, GitHub tracks it for you, so you can see my contributions over time. And so the important thing is if you're going in and you're first learning how to do these things, you don't necessarily need to be, you know, the best coder in the world. You could enter a project and want to work with, say, putting together documentation. And then that would allow you to kind of get to know the process behind how to operate in today's Git-based world, because Git itself is a software repository, but there's different implementations of it. You have GitHub, you have GitLab, etc. But it all kind of operates the same as far as working with project repositories, making changes to those, branching them, submitting changes, pull requests, they call it, and talking about it, agreeing, and then merging, advancing, etc. Really good experience. So, yes, sir.
So you looking at your LinkedIn, I see that you're doing part of. So whenever you're doing this is more for your interest, or is it more for seeing that behind the scenes with the question that you ready to have that?
It's for me, it's all the above, because my background was starting out as a lab admin, and then over time actually working for I worked for IBM directly originally after school, but then some of the companies I worked with was for a nurse staffing application. And then beyond that was working with a industrial maintenance management application. And so I was working to try to help my company run their operations better via software. Okay. And so then eventually I got to the point where I was talking, and Red Hat was a customer of mine. And I got to the point where I was talking to the sales people at Red Hat, and I was thinking, I know it better than you do. I should have your job. And so when I got to Red Hat, what I try to do at Red Hat is to try and put myself on the other side of the table and sell to Mike Savage. What would Mike Savage want to see? How would I want to improve things? And so I try to take that attitude to my customers. And you know, I got to tell you, Red Hat is an incredible place to work. The culture there, open source. We're going to look at my IBM slide, and so IBM acquired us. We're a subsidiary of the hybrid cloud unit at IBM. If you look at the history of IBM's acquisitions, they buy a company and they just cut it apart, and people float off to all, you know, to the four corners of the earth via the wind, via different, you know, aspects of that acquisition and merger. They haven't touched us. And that really says a lot about open source, and everyone has an opinion that matters, and, you know, pretty much democracy of how software is created. So,
So I'm just saying, you know, when.
so it kind of works the same thing to GitHub.
Yeah.
And so you can find what you're passionate about, all kinds of projects all over GitHub.
So like if he's wanting to talk to you or 9FX wanting to talk to you and all these people, they're saying, let me see what they've done and what projects they've done and what's your interest. They want to see on your free time, are you helping out this industry or that industry, or are you trying to figure out, whatever. So he can go year by year to see how you contributed to the different workshops. And this is just his GitHub account.
And you can see how people interact with others because it's just not your knowledge of zeros and ones. It's also how do you work as a team? What are your soft skills? How are you able to kind of interact and reason with others and negotiate and talk through code, right? Or process or documentation. So and we'll talk more here in a second. There's with the gradual increase. I mean, we mentioned ChatGPT, Gen AI and predictive AI are becoming, more and more woven into the world. Work off and do specialized things that really interesting. So we'll see that in there. That was a great question. And again, if there's anything I'm talking about that you don't understand or want to, dive into more, let's do it. Let me know. So let's do a company overview. As I touched on, we were acquired by IBM. They paid roughly 37 billion for us, I think. And we were the first 3 billion open source company in the world. That was pre-acquisition. Now, if you kind of want to know our contribution to the financial sheet, you have to look at the IBM fiscal statements. But we're a big reason why the IBM stock keeps going up. We're right around 22,000 employees, all across the globe, as you can see. And again, we are all over the place as far as in the business world, right? 90% of the Fortune 500 use Red Hat.
And what's sort of odd when he said that, IBM paid 37 billion for a free open source program.
For open source.
It was already free. They could have used it, but they said, no, we want to buy it.
It's really about the culture and the mindset and how we at Red Hat go about taking open source and community ideas and then working them into products that the top companies in the world. And it's really all the way, it's again, we have, Bank of America, Truist, Deutsche Bank, United Arab Emirates, all the way to all the airlines. I'm kind of jumping slides here, but all the way down to the, one of the customers I helped out a couple of months back was the New York State Pension Fund, which was about 100 employees. And they only were running with like 60 of our bare metal servers. And so you can see we're all over the place on working with various customers. Oh, wait, go back. So this just kind of shows our history over time. I actually started using Red Hat in college in 1993. So all the way through to today. And then you can kind of see the various products. We'll dive into that. Mainly right now, most recent, you can see in 2019, we were acquired by IBM. And then our latest CEO, Matt Hicks. Matt Hicks is a cool story. He actually started as a programmer in Red Hat, worked his way up the ranks. CEO. Pretty impressive, right? That kind of shows you the culture of Red Hat, where really open source, the best ideas are what win. And then our most recent one, which was kind of apropos to the AI topic, neural magic. We'll kind of talk about that a little bit. This shows how successful, open source is up until when we were acquired. Realistic, if you were to go in and look at all the SEC filings for IBM and kind of track our contribution to the IBM number, it's exponential. So I think today we're past them. I'd have to look at the year. let's talk about open source, and it's essentially what got Red Hat to where it is, and it's what got me interested in working there. And talk a bit more. So we participate in the upstream in these projects that exist in the public for anyone to join, anyone to participate in, anyone to contribute. Just like GitHub, right? The Linux kernel itself is out there in the Git community. And so what we do is we participate in all of these projects across the globe. And then we take those projects and we integrate them into our own internal repositories. And then over time, we test, add our own security errata patches that eventually make it back upstream to then, complete the loop. But that's kind of how the process works. And then here's kind of an example, it's kind of an eye chart, right? But it shows you all our products. The main one that got us on the map to begin with is top left, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, that's the operating system. And then you can see others that have become very popular. Red Hat Virtualization. Red Hat Virtualization is now integrated into the OpenShift platform. Very popular right now. Is anyone familiar with VMware? Yeah. You know about the Broadcom merger or the Broadcom acquisition? You know what? Do you know why it's interesting? Because when Broadcom purchased VMware, they went to all their customers and said, you got to pay us like 4 to 5 to 10 times as much as you used to, without really even changing anything. It's just because it's that popular and that widely used of a software that Broadcom said, you don't like it, go somewhere else, but you got to pay. And so we have tons of customers coming to us immediately saying, get us off of VMware. And so our virtualization stack is now over an OpenShift. And what's really cool about that is it was all made possible via open source, the open source project. So more and more, and then another one that I work a lot with the banks today is our Ansible automation platform. Ansible is becoming very, very popular out in the IT communities, and that's because you can pretty much automate anything with it. And if you can't, then you can add it. And then these open source projects, here we have included some of the most prevalent and larger projects, the Apache Foundation, a huge one. The top right is Kubernetes, that goes with containerization and OpenShift. And then some of the other 4 ones. The other big one right now is that ELLM. That's open source large language model serving that was born in UC Berkeley. So again, open source education, best ideas kind of being honed, crafted, and then made available to customers. So what do the IT industry analysts have to say? Mainly the big ones are Forrester and Gartner. And they go out and they talk to customers and they say, what do you think about Microsoft? And what do you think about Red Hat? What do you think about IBM? What do you think about company X, Y, and Z in regards to, in this case, it's infrastructure automation? Like, remember, I just talked about Ansible. So look at all these other big folks here, right? Broadcom, Microsoft, EMC, Red Hat. We're far and way up in the top. 20-something thousand employees leading the pack. That's because open source, right? Open source. The next, what are we looking at in this one? DevOps platform. So this is, who knows what DevOps is? What is DevOps?
So like putting an application into that.
Why is it important? That's right, but the big part is development and operations, because when I was coming up through, the developers were off on their side of the building and us in operations were over on the other side, and we're trying to keep things up and running right. And to your point, the software developers they were just writing their applications and throwing it over the wall to us, not really taking into account security or how to update it. all they were caring about is just getting into work and going to lunch. Right? So that made it hard for us. So over time, people started to say, why don't we have it to where the developers and the operations people work together? And so DevOps was born. And as you can see, the Git, we talked about Git earlier, right? The top companies in the top right, the reason why they're over there as leaders is because they specialize in GitLab. GitLab, Microsoft owns GitHub. Atlassian, another kind of software lifecycle management company. So we're kind of, we're challenging, we're in the top left. But again, we're making our mark for a smaller, company. Here we're talking about container management. This is our OpenShift. Distributed compute cluster for containers. You can see they're thinking of us in the top right with all the big ones, right? Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, and Google. Those are the biggest 3 hyperscalers in the world. You got little Red Hat there, you know, doing our thing. And then over in the top right here, you also see us as another with looking at the Magic Quadrant here for cloud application platform and then container management. Kind of very related, but similar result for us. And then again, you can see the picture, right? This is for multi-cloud. This is our ability, because we're not Microsoft directly or Google directly or Amazon or Oracle or whatever. We're able to stay kind of cloud agnostic, and we can bring that power to the table by showing you how we can allow your product to run wherever you want it. And that's the beauty of Red Hat Enterprise Linux and our products, is that we can run anywhere that you can run Red Hat. We call it RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux. We can run anywhere that RHEL is supported, which is supported on all the clouds, on bare metal, on virtualization. You can run it anywhere. It's very attractive to customers because it's like saying there's only one, you know, you can only watch your videos through Netflix, period. You don't have any other choice. What would Netflix do? Jack up the price. But now you have choice of all different streaming applications and platforms. That's what we're bringing to the table. And by the way, Red Hat's running on this thing. All right, some of our customers and partners. We're in 100% of US airlines, all the telcos, with big telco partner. Again, US commercial banks and international banks. We have a big public sector side of our business. It's roughly 30%, I think, of our business. So a lot. And then healthcare, lots of hospitals and healthcare agencies working with us. Here are more customers around the world. You're shipping your presents to your relatives at Christmas. We're helping you out with UPS. Again, we're with all the US airlines. Delta was one of our biggest ones. We're actually working with Deutsche Bank. I was on a call with Deutsche Bank this week. We're helping them migrate some of their applications from another Linux to ours, just because they find ours to have a more complete vision. Oil and gas, and then even across the world, whether it's DBS, Singapore right now, wanting to talk about migrating to our platform in full, and then Latin America, smaller footprint, but growing fast. And then if we look at the various the pillars, right, of the different types of businesses, DoD and defense, Lockheed, healthcare, as I touched on, HCA. We have a big push right now for in-car operating system. We're doing a lot of that work with BMW, and again, more of the telco, Vodafone, Verizon, et cetera, AT&T. Yes, sir.
So it seems like you guys are.
That's
So
correct.
Where is there to go now? Where are you planning on growing? For what's the company's going to like grow into? What industry?
Right. So the problem becomes, because we're open source, but we provide you open source with a support model, we charge you for it. So what happens is all the big companies have the budget to pay for Red Hat. And they know they have to do it because they have to be, follow certifications and compliance, and they have audits across all of their various divisions. And so they realize the value of paying for open source software through Red Hat that we provide support for. Now, smaller companies might not have that extra money to pay for it, and it's because it's open source, they see, well, there's Red Hat Enterprise Linux, but there's also Ubuntu Linux, which is relatively free. You can pay to get support for it, but it's just not as robust and complete as what we offer. But it's free. And so what we're trying to do is provide more incentives for that middle tier customers that might not be able to afford us to provide them. And it comes down to a lot of the reason it comes down to that in a lot of cases is because they're just not that familiar. People are busy, understaffed, under budgeted, right? Money's tight. Stockholders want to see value. And so at the end of the day, they're asked to do more with less. And so you start doing like anybody would do, you start cutting corners. And it's in a lot of cases, you have CIOs, CSOs, chief security officers. What they do now is they'll do a risk analysis. And so they will see if we were to run this free software that might not be as secure as Red Hat, and we were to have a data leak or a hack, how much money would that be? They're doing a risk analysis on your data being exposed versus what it would cost them to actually do it the right way. See what I'm saying? So they're actually doing that now. So they're fine with being hacked as long as it's not too bad. Yeah. So, yeah. So as I touched on, I work with our partners. We have roughly 4,000-ish, and it's growing, but these are some of our big ones. AWS, Google, Cisco on the OEM side, HPE, Lenovo, Dell. I'm working right now with Intel on some of our AI stuff, and I've done some papers with Microsoft and their Azure Cloud hours as well. And these are ISVs that integrate their software on top of our platform. The best way to think about Red Hat and our products is if you were to build a car, we're providing you the frame of the car and like the engine, and it's up to you to kind of put together the cool stereo system and the luxury, or make it Spartan and fast, or make it, big and carry, a bunch of freight. That's what all these various are, whether it's networking, storage, etc. So how can you get your Red Hat? And this is just kind of showing an award I won. Kind of cool is we have an award that calls you a rock star. Right. So right now this semester is tough as far as getting internships because they kind of do it earlier in the year. What I will say is, if you just kind of read some of these links, it kind of gives you insight into some of the various internships offering. You can get an internship after you graduate too. If that path unfolds for you. The journey for me was the first time I applied to work at Red Hat, I didn't get the job. They hired somebody else internally for that job, but I didn't give up. So that would be my, advice to you. If this all sounds interesting to you and it doesn't work out for you right now at this very instant, that doesn't mean that it's over. Get a job wherever you can, wherever it interests you. Continue to work on your open source game. and keep your eyes on the jobs.redhat.com site and try again. This slide didn't kind of turn out good, but, looking at the Linux Foundation talent report, 98% of managers say it's difficult to find employees to hire with enough open source talent. That means they're looking for you. And then if you want to see the various areas that they are most interested in, cloud and containers, DevOps, right? Those Git processes, and then security. Security used to be the add-on at the end that everybody's kind of put together your application and your product stack and then make it secure. It's becoming increasingly now they're inserting security into the process. It's called DevSecOps. So now security people are brought into the conversation rather than, 20 years ago, it was like, hey, here comes the security guy. We don't want him in our meetings. Don't slow us down. Now he's included, or she. And then again, we're talking about AI, ML big time today as well. This kind of shows you over time the various skill shortages that are being reported. That little bump right there, I think, is coming back from COVID. But what you can kind of see is over time, it's just going up. Important thing that customers are looking for hiring is certification. These are some of the certifications that you can get that would kind of fast track you or make you more desirable to hire. This kind of gives you a quick idea of what a salary range is for someone who is Red Hat certified systems administrator called the RHCSA. If you're an RHCE certified engineer, that's where you can take the RHCSA and you get the next level up on top of it. You're going anywhere from 114 to 213 as a range. I think a good thing to keep in mind here is that this is available for free to you today. The Red Hat Developer Program. So all you have to do is go to this link, developers.redhat.com, register, join it, it's free, and then you get access to all of these bits. You can get RHEL, you can get software collections and application streams. That's a whole bunch of stuff to put on top. Red Hat developer tool sets and compilers, and then other types of infrastructure add-ons. It's available for you. And so you can fire up some virtualization on your laptop, start to kick the tires on this stuff. Highly recommend that. And then also, we put together this project called InstructLab. So if you go to instructlab.ai, you can participate via the upstream for this process where we're actually developing the Granite Gen AI model. And let's say you, and the difference here is that, ChatGPT is huge. It requires billions of dollars to operate. And a lot of times, some of the things you might ask and need, you don't know where the data came from, or it's not specialized enough. What we're seeing is that the future is going to be just like a lot of customers run databases locally. They don't have databases with everything in the world in it, do they? Their databases are very specialized. So what we're seeing is customers are going to get to the point where they're going to want to be able to create their own large language models. They're not actually going to be large, they're going to be smaller. They're still called LLM. But they're going to run them locally, because if they want to start to implement facial recognition, they're not going to be able to run a ChatGPT infrastructure at a Brooks Brothers or a Banana Republic or whatever to show you the ad they want you to see when they recognize your face because you're a frequent shopper. They need something that's small and lightweight. So InstructLab is going to allow you to start to learn how to build those smaller but very specific large language models. And here you can actually run the Granite LLM locally and start to ask it things like maybe you're interested in, maybe you're into cooking. Right? How do you prepare a pork shoulder, put it on the smoker? It doesn't know. You could actually submit some training to the model here, and it can be accepted and integrated into it. So what you're doing is you're working to make this granite model better for everyone. That's open source. So we're taking open source to the AI large language model community. So look into that, instructlab.ai, and again, it'd be a great way to kind of get involved and kind of show your instructor stuff when you're going to talk to somebody. So in closing, we are the leading open source company in the world. Period, end of story. Lots of growth, billions of dollars a year. I think we increased 9% year over year last year. So it's a common trend, as you saw. All kinds of products and services, and then working across the globe. So jobs.redhat.com or some of the internship links that I touched on, and come work with them. And then these are additional resources. That's good. Any questions? Questions, comments, thoughts? Who's gonna get started in Git and do some things? Yeah? Highly recommend.